Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Just for everyone that's here tonight, we are not going to be discussing East Point Energy. They're not on the agenda. They didn't ask to be on the agenda. They're not ready, evidently, to be on the agenda. So you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we have other people scheduled for tonight. Is Weston Bluff here? We can start you first. You'll only be a few minutes. By the way, as a reminder, there's the May 2nd webcam from East Point Energy. If you, I'm sure you've seen it already. If you haven't, you can take a picture of this, all right? We're going to start with Weston Bluff tonight, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mike, any comments from you, Mike? Rich, any comments with Mike?
I have no objection to the extension of approval.
No objection.
Pat? I guess the favorite question is, how much longer? Why?
We're
Please
just
state your
waiting.
name.
Oh, Vincent from Keller Sessions. We're just waiting on the bond. He's taking a little longer on the bond. He's having issues trying to get a bond company to issue.
Pat, 6-month extension? No. Do we have a motion to make?
I'll make a motion to grant a 6-month extension.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go back to the top of the agenda. Next on the agenda is the Hamlet at Carmel, Stoneleigh Avenue, amended site plan. Mike, I believe you might have had some comments.
Yeah, it's basically the same project. It's just now it'll be 100% affordable, no market rate.
Rich?
So the applicant, as going with Mike, it's going to be the same layout. They are changing some of the access roads, so I'm sure they'll show you. They should probably run that by the DEP and the Carmel and Croton Fall Fire Departments to make sure they're okay with the new way of accessing the secondary buildings. They provided an amended stormwater pollution prevention plan. It should go to DEP for review because they've reviewed and approved the prior one. Meet with local fire departments. The easternmost, so the overall site plan shows proposed multifamily residences and stormwater basins, along with the modified access road. Based on site visits, the easternmost dwellings are installed along with the stormwater basin. So you're showing the amended site plan with features that are proposed when they're actually installed. That just needs to be upgraded. And you should provide a drawing comparing the approved plan versus the proposed plan, which identifies the access modifications so the board can see it clearly.
Thank you, Rich and Pat.
So as Mike indicated, a modification to the second half, the unit mix, the type of units. Rich mentioned there is a reduction, the elimination of the access road that went around the northwest side of the building. That's been removed, so there's less impervious surface. Net, that's a benefit. There's some slight footprint modifications, but really insignificant. Rich mentioned that the plans do show proposed improvements that I think are already installed, so that needs to be cleaned up. One of the things we asked them to do was to provide a narrative documenting compliance with the original seeker environmental approvals and how the modifications to the plan address that in one way or another. They submitted that documentation, and essentially, as I said before, the plan really hasn't changed other than who will occupy the units.
Thank you. Ken, any comments, any response to the consultants' questions?
No. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Carnazza, Rich, Pat, nice to see you all again. I'm Ken Carney. My son Sean and I are the developers, along with our partners at the Hamlet of Carmel. Phase 1 is finished. We hope to pick up CO on the last building in a couple days. And the response has been very good. We've had 6 applications for every 1 unit. The income limits for Putnam County have increased significantly since I was in front of you 3 years ago. In 22, 23, and 24, the income limits for Putnam County have increased by approximately 10% per year. So, this is a mixed income development. That's what we do. We're looking at, for 1 to 3 bedrooms, you're looking at income limits anywhere from 70,000 to approximately 140,000, as high as 140,000 for some of the units. We looked at market rate. We met with representatives of the Putnam County IDA to see if there was a way to mitigate and alleviate some of the concerns of our bankers as far as long-term ratables, tax rates. The interest rate increase along with construction costs. Our construction costs have gone up about 35% in the last 4 years, made what we originally proposed infeasible. That, along with the overwhelming response and the positive response we've gotten from everybody for Phase 1, has brought us here tonight. I will say, if you've had a chance to go up there, if you haven't, I invite you to. It's a very aesthetically pleasing development. The tenants are doing well. Our on-site manager is doing well. The changes that we made to the buildings based upon the recommendations of your consultant that was brought in for Phase 1, I think has resulted in a better product, and we welcome using those same changes for Phase 2.
Ken, you mentioned the architect, is that who you
Yes.
mentioned as the consultant?
Yeah, and you can see when you pull in, it's different. It has a different look. We've developed 2,000 units throughout the Hudson Valley, but the look here was a little bit different, took a little time, took a lot of prodding with our architect who's kind of set in their ways, but I think it resulted in a very good product. So I'll turn it over to Rich Williams from Insight, who can go over the technical.
Thanks, Ken. So as you heard from staff and consultants, the changes are relatively minor as far as the site plan layout goes. And for the board, if you can see, essentially, there was previously and currently constructed is the southern half of the project, which consists of 75 units. There was always contemplated to be an additional 75 units towards the northern half. We have not begun construction on those yet. All of the stormwater infrastructure is currently in. It's in its temporary state per the erosion control plan, and ultimately at project completion needs to be converted to the final basin configurations. And as far as the changes, there is a small change in the building footprint size, very minor, which leads to a slight reduction in impervious surfaces. And the other thing that we've done is the previous plan had an access road that came in between the proposed buildings and the hospital, which is the property to the north. We believe there's a more efficient way to construct the driveway coming in farther to the south. It leads to substantially less road length, substantially less impervious surfaces. Also leaves a greater amount of buffer, allows us to reduce the limited disturbance a little bit, reduce some of the clearing a little bit, which we also has added benefits, and hopefully you do as well. We anticipate going to DEP for amended SWIP approval, and we'll provide the plans and address the comments as we do.
Let me open it up to the board for questions.
I have a question. The northern half, the future development, now that it's changed to from market rate, what drove that? Was there a lack of interest?
No, I don't think that's me. A few things. One was, when you start this, you have to finish it. We thought about mothballing Phase 2. We have bonds in place. We have a DEP approval. That SWIP stays there, so that every week we have to, regardless of if we build Phase 2 or not, if you start it, you have to finish it. As I mentioned, I had a meeting with 2 members of the IDA to see if there was a possibility of codifying a tax structure. Between that and the increase in interest rates and increase in construction costs, It didn't work. In addition to that, normally, I use tax credits. That's what I use. The tax credits, then I invite investors in for a period of 15 years. My son and I are responsible for every aspect of this development. At the end of 15 years, tax credit investors leave, all right? Here, normally, you have to wait 5 years or so after phase one is done in order to apply for the tax credits. We saw an opportunity when phase one was not feasible. We saw an opportunity to go for the tax credits, and we were fortunate. We were awarded those very competitive tax credits in March. So that's why we're here. It makes a much more efficient operation in regards to management, our management staff, our superintendents, and so forth. So, those are the reasons.
Appreciate the explanation, thank you.
I have a question. You mentioned that some of the units are already occupied.
Yes.
And there's the next phase is going up. What's the interest been like? Is there a waiting list to get in?
Yeah,
Is it,
there was close to 600 people. We had over 400 people in the lottery, and since the lottery, there's been probably 180, so we're close to 600. And people are hoping to apply again. I can share a story with you. I got an email the other day from a husband and wife that moved in. Very, very happy. I've met half of the tenants. I asked them a little bit about themselves, where they're from, blah, blah, blah. My son is a teacher at Mahopac. He's besieged with people trying to see if they can jump to the front of the list. They can't, but we just helped somebody, a single mom over here in Mahopac who was living in an old apartment. I think she works part-time at the school. She got in, thank God. So stories like that.
so the majority of the tenants or the owners, the occupants, from the area, or they're coming from
It's
outside the area?
it's a mix. I've asked, I met one lady, she was from Brewster. I met a couple people, one from Carmel, one from Mahopac. I met a single mom, I met a teacher who teaches in the Bronx. She moved up with her son. I met Yorktown. I met a mom who moved up with her mother and two sons who lived in Yorktown. So it's all, I met a couple who came right over the line from Danbury. So, but I ask these questions
Yeah,
because it's what I do.
yeah, because I think I remember in the beginning, or during the process here, we talked about people from the area, that it was mainly to attract, because it's affordable, more affordable than market rate housing, and that's just curious.
Yeah, and the rents, the rents are, they're still, a one-bedroom is, in phase one, is $1,600. A two-bedroom is $1,800. A three-bedroom is $2,000. Those are the lowest ones, and then you get up to the higher rents, you get into, we have a couple units, I think, in phase one that are $2,800, $2,900. So it's a broad range, and you hope that the people apply fit into one of the income categories. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Never would have thought 10 years ago that affordable would have been those kind of rents, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But, questions from anyone? Take a ride up there. I've been up there. I went up there a couple weeks ago. It's worth
Yeah.
looking at.
Yeah, I took a ride up there, and it really came out very nicely. The architecture, the colors.
Thank you.
The setting. It's a beautiful site. And
It's
so-
incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, so
It really is. And those stone walls depict
In
the
the
property
back,
line.
yeah.
My neighbor is the DEP, so they can't get mad at me if the kids decide to go for a walk in the woods or something.
Yeah.
It's on the DEP property. But it really is a unique opportunity. And we tell the people, it's a unique opportunity you have. You're living in a beautiful apartment with the setting that is just, incredible. So we named the second phase here Reservoir Place because you actually have better views, I think, on both sides of the reservoir. I kind of hug this one. This is, I live here. I was there all the time, and whatever we did on Phase 1, try to do a little bit better on Phase 2, I promise.
I commend the planning board for the job you guys did with the architecture as well as the consultants. Pat, if I want to move this along a little bit, can we schedule a public hearing? Was public hearing the next? I don't see any reason. Now, the two Riches need to get together though and iron out a couple of things. I don't want to hold the project up while you guys debate it, but if you're not ready, then I will hold it up.
Ready?
Right, there's a couple of comments, so just work with Rich, and we can do that, we can do things in parallel then. Is the board okay with that?
Yeah.
I'm okay with
Because
that.
I still have to come back to it, so. Rich had a couple of comments, and I want Rich from Insight to answer and respond to them, and if we do, we can do things in parallel on this project, I think.
So we need a motion?
Yeah, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank you.
job, Rich.
Great
Nice
seeing
job.
everybody tonight. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is 728 Route 6 LLC, amended site plan. Mike, please.
The applicant now has 4 food establishments at the former Lantern Pub. He wishes to add 3 two-bedroom apartments above the commercial. This is not permitted at this time. Use variance is required from the ZBA. There's a variance granted for 80 parking spaces. They will not need a variance for parking. Planning board needs to declare lead agency before referral to the ZBA. And there's a little bit of debris in the back of the property that should be cleaned up. Just get back there and have the owner clean it up, please.
Thanks, Mike. Rich?
So as Mike said, they're looking to do 3 two-bedroom apartments on top of the old Lantern Pub where the food establishments are. Referrals are needed to Mahopac Fire Department, New York City DEP, Putnam County Department of Planning, GML 239N, Putnam County DOH. Permits from the following would be necessary: wastewater flows from DEP, well and public water from Putnam County DOH. The prior reviewed site plan as developed by others is dated 7/29/23. This site plan provided is dated 3/2/23. It's unclear if any changes between the two drawings. Are there any changes? For instance, the drawing shows a proposed 125-foot addition already, but that's already on site right now. Need a separate water and wastewater use report as the wastewater discharge enters into the New York City DEP wastewater treatment plant. They will need to be approved by the DEP. The water report to identify if the well is sufficient for the property. Approval will be needed from the Putnam County DOH. Applicant should address running water on the north side of the property near the newly installed power line. There is a lot of debris on that side, north, not just in the back, but on the north side of the property. It looks like a whole bunch of rock and debris has just been put there. And then any public improvements deemed necessary, development of a performance bond and associated engineering fee will be necessary.
Thank you, Rich. And Pat?
Just a couple of comments, Mr. Chairman. So as Mike indicated, they do need the use variance. What I would say, though, is as you know, the comprehensive plan effort is discussing modifying the code to allow second-story apartments to occur in these sorts of buildings. This is a good location for that. Nevertheless, that's a zoning board decision, so it does have to get that referral. Mike did clarify that their parking requirement is met on the site. Just a question about logistics. Will there be designated, because it's a commercial site as well, will there be designated tenant parking spaces for the residents above? Or will they be fighting for parking spaces with people going to the restaurants every day? Ideally, there would be designated spaces. Again, this is a use that's prohibited in the zone now. However, if it were in another zone where it's permissible, we have a requirement for usable open space. Whenever we have residential apartments, there should be some accommodation for usable open space. There really isn't a lot of space on the site for that, but there should be a discussion about how you might accommodate that. Maybe it's inside this building or some provision for that. Again, if this were a permissible use, that would be a requirement. So something to discuss. And that's the issues with this one.
Jack? You want to explain the project a little further, and then I'll ask the board to comment on it?
Mike kind of explained it pretty well. I mean, this site plan was approved a couple of years ago to change it from the Lantern Pub to the situation it is now. They want to put he wants to put 3 two-bedroom apartments upstairs. Mr. Gu, the owner, is here. we'll discuss the comments that the consultants had. But can we get sent over to the ZBA now?
Well, let me open it up first to
Because if we don't get the ZBA, we got nothing.
Yeah, we have to, first, tonight's meeting is to declare.
Actually, let me clarify that. So this is actually a type 2 action, so seeker does not apply in this case. So the zoning board won't have to deal with seeker, nor do you.
Okay.
It's not, it's a type 2 action though. So even though it's a user, right, so it's exempt. No, it's exempt from seeker. As a type 2 action.
So then we would not be declaring ourselves as lead agency then? Right? We wouldn't have to declare, right?
Right.
Okay, let me open it up to the,
So I have a question, I'm going to direct it to Ridge. So back, a while back, when we were looking at the boutique hotel, you know, one of the big issues that came up was the availability and supply of water. So I guess a little bit to Pat's point about, you know, this is something that's desirable with the new master plan. But then I take a step back and I say, okay, well, we have all these new businesses at this location, 728 Route 6. So all these new businesses are gonna be tapping into the water. Then if we put apartments there, and then we have, later we'll be talking about apartments down the road, Clark Place, where does this put us with our issue with the water?
Well, so these guys are on a well right now, so they have to make sure that their well is sufficient capacity.
Okay, so the water doesn't go up this
We don't
far?
have town water over there.
Oh, okay.
But, so Clark Place would, and that's
Yeah.
another, so a water and wastewater report is required, and we'll talk about that when that happens. Water and wastewater report is needed here also to make sure that they have sufficient water. They have restaurants down there, now they're gonna have, 6 bedrooms. That's a lot of, and that's capacity at the plant that was never accounted for. So your question should be, which is, I'm gonna address differently, is really the capacity at the plant. So the capacity at the plant is limited, right? So it's a 300,000 gallon a day plant. They operate at about 200,000 gallons, that's, but the town has other visions for what they want to use sewer for, right? So does that work into the bigger plan of what the town wants to do in the grand scheme of things? We run something up to Baldwin Road or Baldwin Place Road, that's gonna take up 100,000 gallons worth of capacity, if that ever happens, right? So again, we don't own that plant, we may never own that plant, but the idea is that we're gonna take over that plant, and all the capacity we take now, it goes back to all the issues we have with water and wastewater is first come, first serve. That's not the way we should be operating or thinking, right? Or we should think a little differently about first come. Just because they're here first is not that I don't want them to have apartments, but we need to just make sure that it's not a first come, first serve, and well, you give the 6 apartments here, or the 6 bedrooms here, Clark Place can't get any, right? So that's not the case, but I mean, that's the thing that may happen 50 years down the line, 20 years down the line. That's,
So for this
that's what you need
application,
to-
that wouldn't apply. For this application, that issue wouldn't apply because they're going to remain unwell.
We're talking sewer. When I'm talking that, all that
Okay.
conversation was for
Well,
sewer.
that was going to be my next question. We're talking
Right.
sewer now?
So
No.
for, but it's the same conversation for both. So you have water, we have a limited capacity. The plant can only produce so much water. Mahopac is the source of that water. With sewer, the plant is only designed for a certain amount, and the more you use it, the more it, gets taken up for other users in the future, so. And that would be a DEP decision ultimately on the grand scheme of things. So, to allow this particular addition of flows to it.
I think the concept is good. We've talked about the concept a lot. We've spent a lot of time, this team here spent a lot of time reviewing the master plan, line item by line item. We've even looked at what kind of buildings we would want, from 1 story to 2 story to 2.5 story to 3 story. So, and I think the concept of a lot of the businesses downtown do struggle at times, right? You see a lot of empty storefronts, but where there are apartments above, in some cases, they subsidize the businesses, right? Business peaks and slowdowns and empty buildings. I do think the concept's good, and I do think we have a need for some apartments, affordable apartments downtown that can walk into town, go to CVS, go get a cup of coffee, go get a slice of pizza. We know they can get their nails done. It's a lot of places to do that.
Yeah, and the likelihood, Mr. Chairman, that that would be office space is pretty limited these days.
Yeah, we have a lot of empty office space.
We could also make that a conditional approval if we got to that point.
And, yeah, anything
That
you
would
want,
only
yeah.
be residential, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Question, I want to open up to the board. I said my 2 cents. I want to do it. Bob?
The one concern I have is, you know, being that this is on top of restaurant businesses, how we deal with,
Talk about the noise out in the hallway.
how we deal with fire safety and access, understanding the dangers that restaurant activities.
I can hardly hear you, but, I mean.
You couldn't hear me?
Mike has the fire department,
Well, right now,
responsibilities.
right now, they went through a building permit process for each of the units. And when they do this, they will also have to put a fire separation between the upstairs and downstairs. So there will be something that they're gonna have to design that shows that they have an X rating. I don't have the numbers in front of me. They were 1 hour, 2 hour, something like that. So they'll have to do something between the upstairs and downstairs that's gonna be their protection,
Would sprinklers be a requirement?
not for a 2-story.
That's an excellent point. A couple meetings ago, we talked about similar thing, right?
Yep.
Which goes to the well capacity. Can it handle that, right? So, I mean, those are the questions that need to be looked at and addressed.
Well, the answer would be absolutely no. A well is not gonna work as a sprinkler system. You'd have to put a holding tank and a pump and everything else in there to do it.
You just said a sprinkler system's not required.
Agreed. I
Yeah,
said
I
it would
mean-
not be able to handle it.
Okay. As far as water goes, there's a well. We'll have to deal with the health department on the testing of the well and the capacity of the well. And as far as sewage goes, you got $100,000 capacity, 100,000 gallon capacity in that sewer plant. And we're talking about 660 gallons per day for the 6 apartments, the 6 bedrooms. And the 110 gallons per day per bedroom is probably more than you would use in an apartment situation, but, it's up to the,
So Jack, we
it
also,
is kind of first come, first serve.
Right, but again, do we want to follow that pathway of first come, first serve? Do you think about planning? It's all a good idea, the concept of having a comprehensive plan, that's all there. But again, if it's all used up, the one big one that you have 20 years down the line may not be able to tap into it.
and maybe that's a discussion we need to have one day. It's almost like, in business, you do 5-year, 10-year, 20-year capital plans, and you try to look at something like that and what is feasible and what's not.
Is not the state encouraging these apartments and,
We're not debating, I like the apartments. I think we like the apartments. We're just talking about infrastructure a little bit, yeah.
can we
I'd like
go-
to know more about the architectural part of this building. We just got complimented previously on the job we did with the architectural review. I'd like to see some renderings or what's this gonna look like? This is a really important spot for us. I don't think any of us debate the use and the need for some apartments downtown.
You need the
microphone.
Yeah, microphone. We're not changing the building. We're going, upstairs is, right now, it's an office and a storage space, and that office and storage space is to be converted into the apartments. There's no modifications to the exterior of the building, no modifications to the site at all.
Okay.
And, can we go to the zoning board?
So you,
You're not going anywhere tonight. We still have a lot of questions.
Jack,
Okay.
you're proposing 3 2-bedroom apartments, so what are the square footage of the apartments?
Of each apart,
Because you're telling me you're taking office space and converting it into apartments, so I'm thinking either it's a really big office space or these are gonna be really small apartments.
20, 30, 40 by 15. In that
600
area.
square feet.
And it's the whole upstairs, really, I can get that information for you.
Jack, you need the microphone.
I can get that information for you.
Where's the access point to the apartments? Is it in the back, side?
You know where that is?
Good question.
Mike, go.
Mike, you need to use the microphone, please,
Here, Mike.
and introduce yourself. Mike, please introduce yourself for the people that are on TV.
The microphone.
Yeah, but we have the 2 stairs, and the one in the right side and the one in the left side. We have I think we have okay, one is here, We have one from the that side, the right side and the left-hand side.
Okay.
Yeah, they can go they can go through, you know.
And
for
that's from the
two
front of the
apartment.
building, from the front?
Yeah, yes,
And either tenant can use either staircase?
yes. They can
And
use
where did
both
the-
for all the 3 apartments.
Where do the staircases let out on the ground floor?
Yeah,
Where?
From the ground, yeah, it's there.
But
For
how do
the
I get
east-
access?
yeah,
In
the-
other words, from the front of the building, I don't see access.
No, not the front, it's the right-hand side.
One's
and
on the back
left-hand
left side,
Okay.
and one's on the far
Yeah,
right side.
the one is existing there already. And the other one is, this one is a new one, you know, I put it in there. I think each apartment per square foot, like 700, 700, yeah, square foot.
The one apartment's a little bit bigger, it looks like.
Does the building of that other staircase affect the parking lot at all? Because I know with the businesses down there, you know, and like we were saying about tenant parking and whatever, if that's gonna extend into the parking lot.
It's there already.
So, no, there's one there, he said they're building another one.
No, I have there already.
They're both there?
They're both
sta-
there.
Oh, I thought they, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Sorry, I don't
thought
mean
you
to
said
keep
there was
jumping in, I just-
one you had to build.
So when the tenant steps out of either stairwell, they're stepping to the right or left of the building, right? And that's where our vehicle, is there gonna be sidewalk?
We have enough room to go into for the stair, okay, for the worker people here. We have plenty of room to both sides.
So that when they come down the steps, they're
I
still
gotta look, 'cause
inside?
I'm not
They're
convinced.
not going into the parking lot or onto the sidewalk then? When they come down the steps, where are they going?
They're in the vehicle
They go
traffic
into the
area.
parking lot.
That's what I was worried about.
And the part of the parking lot,
And
there'll
the one side going to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
The one side.
The bottom of the stairs on the right side is a lobby that you can go into the faux or out into the parking lot. On the other side in the back, you have to tell us, because that's not clear to me.
At the other side,
The back.
it's directly going out the, similar like we have a small stair sidewalk there, you know.
And your plan shows sidewalks on both sides. Is that right, William? There's a sidewalk on both sides?
Well, on the driveway side, going the exit driveway side, it is a small sidewalk. It's not as big as the other sidewalk on the parking lot side. But, you know, the 2 staircases will serve the apartments, the proposed apartments, you know, to meet New York State Building Code for the means of egress, secondary means of egress on the building. The main means of egress will be from the parking lot side. The other side will be mainly secondary means of egress and occasional use of going up and down. But I guess, you know, people are going to park on that side and walk up to their apartment.
There will be sidewalks and.
There are sidewalks already.
So you come down the stairs, turn left,
I just don't want people stepping out into an active driveway.
there's a sidewalk.
Okay.
There is the one sidewalk right here on the side of the parking lot, and the other sidewalk is right over here. This is the door that goes up to the stairs, the second door to the second floor of the building. So this is, the second floor is only over this side over here, and over this side, the old existing business office for the Lantern Pub. And from there, the stairs go up there. The units will be on the outside walls where there are windows to serve them. You know, they're not going to be very large units, but they will be decent size with a corridor that's fireproofed and what have you to connect both staircases.
And how would designated parking actually operate there? I mean, you know.
Well, I mean, you know, you can probably designate some of the parking back here and write, you know, assign parking for tenants only.
But your main access is on the other side?
Well, the main access is right here.
Right. I think the site plan just needs to be updated so the board can understand how that's all gonna work. So you're telling us that's the main access, it wasn't quite shown there, you have 2 ingress, egress. Where are people gonna park? How are they gonna be safe when they go in and out of that parking area? I think that needs to kind of be addressed, or at least shown.
I think that we agree with you, and if they're gonna be designated parking spaces, I can speak on their behalf and say, you know, they should be designated, saying those parking spaces are designated for tenants, and that should be indicated on the site plan, yes.
Yeah, we'll discuss that with you guys.
Yeah, but I
as to
think-
where the designated parking is gonna go, but they, on the right side, they go in and out. On the left side, it just goes around. It's
one way.
one way like.
It's one way out, basically one way in, but this is big enough, 24-foot wide, to act as two ways if anybody uses it, but generally speaking, people go in and leave out that way.
Any questions, thoughts? Mike, Rich, are we closed on the parking? Because I'm a little confused on the parking. Do we have ample parking for this project?
They have a variance for 80 spaces, so they have a lot more than they need. But in real life, probably, what would it be required if there was no variances, Jack? I don't have the map in front of me.
I think it's like 37 or something.
And how many do you actually have?
Parking required is 40, and we got 35.
So they're 5 light, but they got a variance of 80.
40 and 37.
Use the microphone.
Required is 40 and provided is 37. But we have the variance for that. Physically provided is 37, required is 40. That's, you know, with the apartments.
So question, at the height of the day, or when all the businesses are, you know, having patrons, how many of those parking spaces are taken up?
Well, from my experience now, at the highest, which is on Saturday night, I was there a couple of times in some of the restaurants, and the parking lot was probably at 65% capacity. There was plenty parking. You know, I mean, the first few parkings toward the road, towards Route 6 are filled, but the ones in the back, they were mostly empty. Yeah, that's from experience. There was no study taken to show exactly where it is. But me as a, you know, patron, go to the restaurants there often and not patronize it. It's always, there's always ample parking, plenty.
That's a good news, bad news. Look, there's some confusion still on this project. I think Rich had a good idea about updating the site plan. The good news in this case is we like the concept. We support the apartments. We like the project. It's what we've spent time, we spent a lot of time reviewing apartments over. But I'm not ready to send this to the zoning board because I couldn't explain this well. I don't think anyone on the board, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to speak for you, but if we can't speak to it well, you know, a couple people already said, I gotta go out there again and look at where the parking is. So come back in 2 weeks with a better site plan, as Rich mentioned. We will make sure that everyone here gets out there to see that and can visualize where the stairs will be. And then we'll just pick up from there in 2 weeks.
All right, I'll sit down with Mike and Pat, and we'll get there, and, you know, we'll answer their questions and have a revised site plan, and then
I think that'd be
we'll
good.
go back in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. You guys okay with that? Vicky, you good with that? Yeah. Next on the agenda is Lamana Auto Body, 255 Route 6, site plan. Good evening. Mike, you have some comments on this one?
Yeah, they're building a 2,685 square foot addition, or they're proposing to. The fence along the rear of the property should be either replaced or cleaned up and neatened. A lot of overgrowth, and it's kind of hanging down onto that road there. The notes on the plat were changed to reflect the correct code, which is what I asked at my last thing, and there are 4 variances needed from the zoning board.
Thank you. Rich?
So, this is the addition of a building at the auto body shop. It's 2,685 square foot addition. Referrals, so what I want to say is the applicant should provide a cover letter which responds to all of our comments. That wasn't provided. So I don't know if they've, you know, noted those referrals or noted the regulatory permits. The SCAF shows a 4,000 square foot disturbance. which needs to be resubmitted because the project, the new drawing shows a 6,000 square foot disturbance, which then triggers the New York State general stormwater permit coverage. Applicant, there's archaeological information on the site, provide information regarding that in the SEAF. Site distances were provided. They should provide calculations. Lighting spill plan should be provided. Electric utility information is not provided on the drawing. Applicant is abandoning an existing well and connected to a private district. Approvals from the Putnam County DOH are needed. And then just general comments after that, nothing that's major.
Thank you, Pat.
So this is an auto body facility. It's separately regulated through a section of the code which they fully comply with. So as you remember from their initial presentation, that was a reassuring element that they complied with all the auto body facilities. As Mike indicated, they still have some zoning compliance issues, so they do need a couple of area variances and a parking variance. One of the issues we raised initially was circulation through that front portion of the property. So they have provided a plan that shows vehicle maneuvering. There's not a lot of room. So one of the comments we had originally related to landscaping and screening. There's just not a lot of space to do that. Maybe it's possible to put some planters along the building or something like that, but there really isn't enough space to provide a typical planting strip. And if you did that, you'd eliminate the vehicle circulation. The circulation's more important in this particular instance.
And stepping the building back wouldn't be a good alternative either.
That's right. And as I think Mike indicated, there's a fence issue on the back. I think we want to clean up the back side of the property as well. There might be an opportunity to do that.
I think when we talked to this applicant in the past, we said you have, because that cut-through road, you have two front yards.
Two fronts.
Yeah, that's why we're focusing on the backyard.
But again, as you remember, the history of this was a site that was really problematic, and it's been cleaned up significantly. This will continue in that direction.
I'm sure it will. Questions from the board? Hey, you want to respond to any comments now?
So we are proposing planters in front of the building. That was already submitted on our architectural site plan as well as our rendering and our drawings. And obviously, we have a number of zoning variances to get through. But I know that the owner actually of today was putting up and cleaning up the fencing around sort of the nose of the property there, the pointed section of the property. So they were doing it today. So he's mindful of trying to have a nice, clean site.
Very few applicants are leaving here without us talking about their, fixing up their sites, making them look better. Right, Dave?
Just for the record, would you state your name, please?
Michael Piccarello, MAP Architects.
Thank you.
So I can show you the rendering if you want to see it.
Yes, I was going to ask you if you would show.
And talk to us about the finishes on the new building again. I know you mentioned something the first time. Oh, that's what we're looking for. That's great.
So the siding would be a wood siding, a vertical siding, cedar. It would be have a solid stain on it, a red tone, and then the thin brick on the bottom would match the existing building. We have the contractor is certain that he can match the grout lines, and so you match the color because that's not a very difficult brick to match. It's just a standard red brick. So.
Any air conditioning unit? Oh, no, you're using the other buildings.
Correct.
HVAC, right?
Correct, yeah, the services are actually all coming from the existing building, except for the water, which is going to be cut off, and then we're going to hopefully tap into the water,
I didn't notice when I was out there, but does the other building's air conditioning units, are they kind of screened somewhat?
Correct, yeah, you can't even see them.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to continue that, so we're not even, because the space that we've created is essentially one big open space, so that's all it is. So we'll be able to use.
Renderings look nice. Any comments from anyone?
No, looks good.
Looks good, yeah.
Looks good. I think in this case, we could probably send it off to the ZBA.
Right.
A couple times you've been here, improvements, you're just overachieving on every step, so let's continue that. It looks
Nice,
good.
okay.
So after it goes to the ZBA, we'll see it again.
Okay.
And another case, we can do things in parallel for you.
Okay.
Okay. Make a motion for the zoning board?
I make a motion to send to the zoning board?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a nice
Have a good
night.
night.
You got to stamp the drawing.
Yes.
Stamp the drawings.
I got denied this to the ZBA. The other side, yeah, the other side, thank you. probably did. You saw that.
I don't see any with actual drawings.
I spent my day doing homeworks. Don't tell my full-time employee.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good night. Next on the agenda is 2 Clark Place, residential site plan.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Mike?
The applicant wants to legalize 2 apartments, one one-bedroom and one two-bedroom, to the commercial building on Route 6 in Clark Place in Mahopac. They were there when they bought the building. The new zoning code is specifically allowing apartments over commercial, but this is not the case right now. Use variance is required from the ZBA. Minimum frontage should be 100, not 200. On the map, it said 200. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variants, 6 variances are required from the ZBA. Lot area, front yard, lot depth, building area, parking spaces, and loading zone is half in and half out of the lot.
Thanks, Mike. Rich?
So as Mike indicated, 2 apartments that are existing in the building, provide a legend on the drawing, provide a water and wastewater use report. The summary of variances of the drawing I saw was incomplete, so it needs to just be updated. Provide an existing condition and proposed conditions plan based on the site visit. The features shown on the drawing, for instance, parking spaces and stripes, do not exist in the field. They're shown there now. Provide a survey of the property. The proposed drawing shows 3 spots along Clark Place. Site conditions show this is an open area with no curbing, so safety of pedestrians and cars parking there should be and must be addressed. Lighting spill plan should be provided. Is there a location for the refuse dumpster? Available site distance and calculations should be specified on the plans. Graphic representation of vehicles and movement and all turning radii should be provided. There should probably be signage on the property showing the ingress and egress to show that direction of traffic. There is no, applicants indicated no disturbance would take place, but if there is site work, the area of disturbance should be provided. And then should any public improvement be deemed necessary as part of the development, performance bond and associated engineering fee should be there. That would include striping and signage and any stormwater management practices if needed.
Thanks, Rich. Pat?
And this is similar to the earlier application we heard, same thing, use variance in existing apartments up above. So they do need those variances for this. They do need the use variance. Legalizing apartments, so the primary issue with respect to that's a Mike issue, building code compliance. So Mike needs to make sure the apartments are safe and legal. As I mentioned before, typically open space, a requirement for apartments. Is there any way to deal with that on the site? And Rich mentioned confirming all the utilities on the property, need to do that. The final thing is your role as the architectural review board. So if you know the building, it's a peculiar looking building. It's not a deteriorated building. It's just a weird building. The cedar shakes. That sort of, it's like the roof slipped down to the front of the building. So I don't know that there's anything to do about that. But it's not in poor condition. It's just peculiar. So I just offer that as a comment. I'm sure you had the same reaction when you saw the building. So again, you are the architectural review board, so you do need to bear that in mind when you make your decision with respect to the application.
Well, there's a few comments there. Any remarks yet?
Yes, I mean, I'm William Besharat, the owners, the crack was with me. This project really basically came about to legalize existing apartments that have been there for, as far as we know, almost 40 years, both apartments. At one time, the owner of the building, Mr. Gilmore, had lived in there. The situation came from a requirement from the bank with the refinance. There is no proposed construction on the site whatsoever, not interior, not exterior. The only thing will be done is to stripe the parking lot and reflect what we submitted on the site plan. The variances that Mike had mentioned, those are pre-existing on the site from day one. And one of the issues that we have with it is also the same where, as the project before us, we have 2 roads, and so we have 2 fronts, basically. It's a pie shape between 2 roads. So we have 2 fronts, what have you, and we are aware of the variances, and we will have the list to go to the zoning board, including the stuff that's it's not being created, it's just pre-existed all this time. So although the number of 6 variances may sound astonishing, but it's really basically normal for many buildings and lots in this town that has to be done with it. At this stage, like I said, no work is being proposed. We will be more than happy to comply with the comments from Rich regarding all, the engineering and to clarify everything and make it as part of an approved site plan. We have no problem doing that at this stage, but the zoning board approval becomes a priority, and we would like if we can get to the zoning board and see what they got to say regarding the use, not the area variance. The area variance usually, it's nothing we can do about it because it's not self-created.
Yeah, there's quite a few comments that Rich had that you have to meet with
We
Rich on.
will meet them and
Complete the
address them for
drawings,
the
right?
site plan, at this stage, but it's not, like I said, there is no construction will take place, neither interior nor exterior. The building is as is, it exists. And that, yes, like Pat said, it's peculiar looking building, but it's pretty well kept and pretty clean area.
I guess not to interrupt you, Willie, but I think my biggest issue right now is that there's things that should be on the drawing that Rich hasn't seen yet, or that none of us have seen yet in that case. Right, turning radius, the curb
Yeah,
cuts,
but I don't see the relevance of them for us to go to the zoning board initially, but if the board
Well, the
insists on it, we'll be more than happy to
the
do it and come back.
relevance is that the planning board needs to be satisfied before they send it to the zoning board.
Okay.
I love the concept. I think everything these gentlemen own looks nice. So I think there's an opportunity for us. But what I don't want is drawings not complete to come in front of the board and in front of us.
I don't know, Rich, what do you think? The comments that you have are basically existing conditions, just we have to clarify them on the site plan, correct?
Yeah, and I think you should do that before you get sent to the zoning board. So, and I think, I've been in that parking lot. If anybody's driven in that parking lot, it's fairly haphazard, like the way Lake Plaza was, which is why we had them put islands up and all that stuff. I'm not asking for any of that to be done here, but I think some kind of concept of how that's being done, what's going on now, it's haphazard. In the future, we need to just figure that out, right?
I just
I
don't
think
want.
it's minimal, sorry,
No,
Mr. Chairman.
yes.
I think what you have to do is very minimal to show that, and I think you do that, and you come back at the next meeting, and it'll get you to the zoning board. But
Okay.
I think sending this to the zoning board now without, all that, I think, is safety of pedestrians who are gonna be in that parking lot. Right now, it's not quite there.
Okay, and just want to add one more item regarding the parking lot. It's really the concept that we're planning on doing with it is the same concept that was done with the CVS parking lot, with parking in different directions, parallel and the perpendicular parking. And it will improve what's there, although that property, the demand on parking is absolutely minimal. At any given time, there's 3-4 cars in that
But
parking
still,
lot, always.
I'm-
And I completely understand that, yes, we're gonna be prepared for the maximum. We will address the comments, and we will come back next meeting.
I just don't want to support submissions that lack what we need to see.
No problem.
Now, let's talk about what Pat had mentioned, and what you've heard, that certainly these gentlemen have heard us say plenty of times. What about the building? What can we do to make a wow factor or something? Like when you drive by there, it is kind of ho-hum to being polite, but what can we do to say, wow, I'm entering Mahopac, that's a nice building?
I'm gonna be honest with you right now, and the hardship of the financial times and the way the economics are going, and. we
Come a
need
little
to find-
closer, introduce yourself. Yeah.
Nick Greco, pleasure to meet you. Good evening, everyone. And, right now, I'll be honest with you, we can't afford to invest into that building. That building is existing, it's been pre-existing the way it is for many, many years since the Gilmores owned it. It was owner occupied. All we're trying to do is actually do something right by legalizing it and nothing more. I just don't have, I can't be put on the spot because I want to legalize and do something right to be held hostage to, invest in remodeling and putting thousands of dollars, which I don't have in this. It's just a hard time overall. Interest rates are over at 9% in commercial loans, and it's just a difficult time. All I'm trying to do is trying to bring it to the board, correct the parking lot, because yes, it is a hazard, and yes, it looks bad. Yes, maybe put some planters outside or something like that.
That
but-
alone would help. I think there's
Yeah,
some low-lying
but
fruit like
that's,
that. We just talked with the auto body, right? And
Correct.
it looks
And
nice.
that's a minimal, just to beautify the area, that's understood, and that could be accommodated.
We
But,
like the board, I don't speak for the board, but we like the idea that Mike can go in there and then look at it afterwards and say, okay, now we're bringing things up to code, bringing things up to compliance, because I'm sure it's not, this is an old building, it's a pre-existing building.
Correct.
Let me ask the board if they have any questions or concerns, or,
Yeah, the one question I have, you said their apartments have been there and the owner occupied it, but you're not doing any construction in there, so
Everything stays the same.
we don't have to upgrade anything, no
Everything stays the same.
appliances and all that, or?
Everything, we're just leaving it the way it is and changing nothing, just trying to address the parking, yes, because it is a mess, there's no striping. We want to do that as well.
Yeah.
We want to put some signs because there's a lot of new restaurants in the area that people are sneaking into. So we want to address that. We want to designate the parking spaces for the 2 apartments upstairs within the site plan so that the apartments know that those are their designated parking spots. The one commercial store, the window store, no one is ever there. It's just a storefront more for advertising. So there really isn't a lot of pedestrian, traffic on the site to begin with. But yeah, we do want to address it with the striping. That's the most important thing, and I think that will dress up the building tremendously, just that one issue with the few planters out front and so forth.
yeah, I think that'd be a good start. Anything else? All right, will you come back, work with Rich and the team, then we'll get
I'll pick up tomorrow copies of the
There's no reason why this can't
comments.
get moving in 2 weeks.
Great.
All right,
We appreciate it.
We'll try and get them in
I think
ASAP
you
to
can
get
get these
them on the
comments
next
pretty
one.
easy.
Yeah.
We'll get you where you gotta go.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, everyone.
you.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. All right, we did West and Bluff already.
Yeah, we have meeting minutes.
We're gonna hold off on the meeting minutes. Not everyone's had a chance to review those, so I'll ask Rose to bring those back at the next meeting.
Before we knock off, I just have a question for Pat. So, Pat, when a property like this comes before us, and we have a mixed use, we have the commercial and then residential, and it's an old building, pre-existing building, what is our responsibility when it comes to ADA compliance?
Compliance. That's why I said Mike has an, regardless of the pre-existing condition, the building today must comply with.
Oh, I know that, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, so it must comply with ADA requirements.
So does the well,
I'm
as an-
sure there's no
only as an
elevator.
example, I mean, that particular property, does it comply with ADA?
So the 2 dwelling units, I don't know what additional requirements are necessary for 2 dwelling units in the second floor. I don't think, it doesn't require an elevator, for example, but there is probably accessibility clearance issues with respect to the travel, the path of travel.
And are waivers available for those, or you have to comply?
So that's that's the state building code issues, and they're not, it's unlikely that they would vary those sorts of things. That's, yeah.
So should this be more part of our dialogue when we're looking at these projects?
So as I said before, so you can suspend your site plan review and say, Mike, do a building code compliance review. Mike has to do that anyway when they file for whatever permits they would need for whatever, in this case, they're not doing anything though. So prior to the CO that would get issued for this, Mike would have to certify its building code compliance. So ordinarily, that's a condition of site plan approval, right? You don't get involved in Mike's business necessarily. However, I like you to ask the question, because if it is, oh geez, we have to install an elevator and that's gonna we need a new landing and that's gonna lose a parking space because of that, that's when it starts to get complicated. So I think as long as you ask the question of an applicant, do you have to do anything to the site to upgrade to comply with building code issues, that's a fair question. But doing that, that's Mike.
Okay.
And Mike's a tough cookie, so they don't get away with anything.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.